Hey, good people, my name is Renee. So, I recently saw an article that one of my friends sent me done by NPR, and it ties into the article about the poultry factory workers and how they were forced to wear diapers to work or forced to soil themselves on the line because they were not allotted bathroom breaks. Now, this story just left me even more pissed than the first story that I saw, because it confirmed a lot of things that I was saying in my previous video. So NPR did an article about how meat and poultry factory workers' injuries and deaths are mainly unreported. The name of the article is "We Don't Know How Many Workers Are Injured at Slaughterhouses. Here's Why." So I just want to point out a few things that stuck out to me. So in the years 2014 to 2013, 151 poultry and meat workers have died from on-the-job injuries. Now, while that may not sound like a lot, those sort of deaths are very, I would imagine, painful. And the reason why I say that is because if you think about the sort of machinery they use, the sort of knives they use, all sorts of, cutting equipment that we probably will never really, interface with, they're using some massive equipment with very sharp blades, so it's not like the paper cut that you get, filing papers at work or, typing in clients' information. This is a lot more grueling, more dangerous environment in general. So 151 deaths in an environment like that is a big deal, in my opinion. So 3 of the main reasons why the injuries and deaths of these meat and poultry workers are underreported is that injuries in the industry are underreported. Oh, already said that, sorry. So, sanitary workers who clean the machine suffer amputated limbs and severed fingers. And that is because, like I said, the machinery. And it sounds like if they're suffering amputated limbs and severed fingers, either there is a safety training that's lacking, or the machines are not fixed, or they don't come with sort of like these safety catches. And when I say that, I mean, like, I've worked on a construction site before. I do a lot of community, advocacy around affordable homes, and one of the saws that we use has a safety cover, so you won't accidentally cut yourself or cut off a hand or cut off your arm. So that's what I mean. It sounds like these machines aren't retrofit with any sort of safety shield to prevent people from accidentally cutting themselves, and it sounds like they're probably not even really being properly trained. Another issue is because many of these employees are third-party contractors, their injuries and deaths aren't captured in data. Now, I find that to be problematic because whether they're a direct employee of the factory or a third-party worker, a death or a severe injury is still a death or a severe injury that happened in your facility or at your company. So it should be captured, but I get how companies get around that so that then they can tout about how safe they are, this, that, and the third. Another really big issue that stood out to me was medical staff convincing injured employees that they can keep working. Now, what type of competent medical professional would tell someone with a severe cut or severe injury that they could keep working? Now, if you're that easily bought out by the company you work for, you need to either reevaluate your own integrity or you need to find you another company to work with, because that's straight up neglect. Another reason why these injuries go largely unreported is that workers are usually immigrants or refugees. So they worry about, maintaining their livelihood. A lot of them worry about, even being able to find another job to sustain themselves or their families. And of course, language is a barrier that contributes to employees not receiving proper training. Now, I find that insulting because if they had to teach, you can find almost anyone to translate. So if you recognize that some of your employees, whether they be contract or otherwise, if you realize there's a language barrier, then bring someone in to translate. Because their lives are at risk, like literally they are. People are dying because a lack of communication or a lack of understanding, and that doesn't have to be. So I want to read part of this article to you because it ties into some of the points that I brought up in that first video. So it says, worker advocates say they have long been suspicious of the injury rates reported by meat companies. For instance, a recent study at Maryland poultry plant by the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, NOISH for the acronym, found that 1/3 of workers had injuries that met the definition of carpal tunnel, but only a handful of injuries had been reported to OSHA. Now, it's interesting that they also highlighted carpal tunnel because that was one of the things that I talked about in my previous video. Is because since I have done repetitive motion work, or I have been in environments where I had to do, repetitive movements, I have seen people and coworkers around me have severe carpal tunnel, and we weren't even working in a factory setting. So just imagine if you're working in a factory setting and you have to go super fast, like you have to exceed a speed that probably any of us have ever worked with our hands. So it's interesting that they brought up carpal tunnel because I had said, I wouldn't be surprised if these people have carpal tunnel or other repetitive motion, movement issues. So it's just really interesting that all of this is kind of coming full circle and that these issues are being brought to light. But once again, this is just some of what we know. What about the other ones that we don't know about? And I would say to anyone out there, if you find yourself working in these sort of inhumane, conditions, do not allow yourself to be mistreated. Take notes, document everything. I implore you to either go through the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission because you have certain rights that you are due being an employee, contractor, otherwise. And then if you can't get any resolve there, consider seeking legal assistance. Consider an attorney. Do not allow people to mistreat you just because you're afraid that you may lose your income. And yes, I can say that because I have stood up to previous supervisors and district managers and all this sort of thing because their idea of, their idea of success or their idea of excelling was not realistic. So if you have a minute, take out the time, read the article. It's really interesting. If you did not check out the previous video, please do so. I'll link it in the description bar below. And until next time, y'all have a good one.